I'm not my sister, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
I am scared for Mia Blanchard. I feel like at this point, I don't know if she's Gypsy or what.
So let's start with the actual problem, because this story did not just crawl out of the internet sewer for no reason. The allegation was that Gypsy Rose got Mia fired from her nursing job, and the reason people kept taking it seriously is because it did not come wrapped in nothing. It came with details. Ugly ones. The claim was that a nurse co-worker of Mia Blanchard said Mia got fired because of Gypsy. That is where this starts. Not with a dramatic paperwork leak, not with some polished statement, just a co-worker allegedly saying it happened on its own. Yes, that is still an allegation. Nobody needs to pretend otherwise. But what made this story stick is everything that started sitting around it after. Shortly after that, Mia's LinkedIn changed from labor and delivery nurse to dermatology. And let's be honest, that is exactly why people did not just laugh this off and keep scrolling. Because now you do not just have a rumor floating around with its wig half on, you have a visible professional shift sitting right next to it. Does that prove every last detail all by itself? No, because it does make the whole thing look a lot less random. Because if none of this touched Mia's real life, if this was all fake drama made up by bored people with cracked screen protectors and too much free time, why did her public job path suddenly look different right after the allegation started moving around? That is a detail that made this story hard to kill. Then there was the other little detail that made it smell even worse. Somebody said they were in Mia's live asking about it and got blocked. Again, not a court filing, not some magical smoking gun descending from the heavens, but questions getting shut down around a story like this do not exactly scream, wow, what a totally harmless misunderstanding. It screams nerve hit.
That is crazy. And I'm really hoping it's not true. Sorry, y'all. I can't help it. Ring light. It's dark. But you know what? I wouldn't put it past the Gypinator because we know her sister is her biggest trigger. But if you guys click on the comment, you can actually see the whole thread because there's a good conversation happening there. Supposedly there's a creator on here that's been talking about it, and Mia's been going live a lot and talking about things and saying that Krusty's making her go live. And that would make sense because she lost her job. And, you know, when you have a lot of followers, lives can be, they can bring in a lot of money. But also there was another comment stating that the hospital was trying to use her vlogs, her daily vlogs, and her online or her at work TikToks. But that doesn't make sense to me because I like Mia. So I watch her TikToks. And the ones when she's at work, she's like in a closet or sitting at a desk eating. Her name tag is backwards, so it doesn't show any indication. She's not of where she works. It doesn't show any like patient confidential information, or so it just doesn't make sense to me. But you know, we've seen in the past that anybody that's tied to Gypsy tends to have a lot of drama. I mean, Ken's holding on for dear life, but I think that's about to go away too because the gravy train's over. Gypsy, if you're getting your sister fired, I mean, you're no longer the pay pig that you used to be, sweetheart. I heard from a source, now, allegedly, you turned down a house in Thibodaux, Louisiana because you couldn't afford $1,100 rent. So why would you have the one successful Blanchard who has a respectable job, who she had to go to college to get, why would you have her fired? Doesn't make sense. Y'all know anything? Y'all know about these creators that are talking about it? Let me know. Tag me. I've been out of the loop. But I want to know, what's the Gypinator been up to? Did Gyposaurus get Mia fired? Mia, if you're watching, we love you, and we're praying that you get to do what you love again because you seem to be really good at it. Y'all, let me know.
So right from the beginning, this story had more than one thing holding it up. The allegation, the timing, the LinkedIn change, the blocking. That is why this one kept changing around instead of dying the quick little death most internet nonsense deserves. The LinkedIn change is one of the nastiest parts of this whole thing because it dragged the story out of rumor territory and shoved it right up against something people could actually point at. Mia was listed as labor and delivery, then that changed to dermatology. Now obviously people change jobs. Nobody's saying once you pick a field, you are handcuffed to it for life, like you signed some cursed blood oath in a hospital hallway. But timing matters. Timing is everything here. When the conversation is already about whether Gypsy's chaos spilled into Mia's professional life, that kind of change does not read like some cute little career refresh. It reads like fallout. One of the source lines even pointed out that labor and delivery is not exactly the kind of role people casually toss aside, saying you get to see babies and make more money on average. Sure, that part is opinion, fine, but the bigger point still lands. This looked less like a random little professional pivot and more like somebody having to adjust her life because being connected to the wrong person had become too messy. And that is what makes this whole thing so gross. Not just the accusation itself, but the possibility that Mia's actual career had to bend around Gypsy Rose's never-ending circus of chaos. Because Gypsy's mess never seems to stay politely in her own lap. It spreads, it leaks, it gets on other people. She's like the human version of red punch at a child's party. Once it spills, everything nearby is ruined. If Mia really had to shift her professional end because being publicly tied to Gypsy became a liability, that is not family tension. That is your life taking a hit because one person refuses to stop turning every room they enter into a spectacle. This is where the story gets harder to brush off because the alleged job fallout was not the only thing sitting there. Mia's behavior afterward started looking a whole lot like somebody trying to create a serious distance. Around last Thanksgiving, Mia allegedly unfriended Gypsy and removed all of her pictures. That is not small. That is not some tiny social media mood swing. That is not one of those fake little online gestures people do for drama and undo by Monday. That is somebody giving in and cutting the public connection. And the explanation attached to it is what really tells on the whole situation. It was said Mia did it to create distance for her professional life. That line does not just matter. That line carries the whole stink of this story on its back. Because now we are not just talking about sister drama. We're talking about a woman allegedly feeling the need to separate her image, her name, and her career from Gypsy Rose. That is insane. Your own sister allegedly had to do career damage control because your name had become too messy to sit beside comfortably. That is not just embarrassing, that is humiliating in a way that should make you want to crawl into a drawer.
I am worried for Mia. Mia is Gypsy Rose's number one trigger. She has said this. She said it in emails. She said it on interviews several times. She said it on one of her videos, the Leave Me the F Alone video. She was talking about Mia being one of her triggers. I mean, she said it like 25 times.
So, people want to talk about my triggers? That's one of my triggers, is my sister. That is a trigger for me.
We are gonna cause mayhem and destruction like nobody's ever seen.
Christy was said to have put a lock on Mia's door, and I can see Christy doing that. I don't care how much Christy Blanchard tries to deny that. That came from a very, very strong, solid source, and we can all see her doing that. She didn't know Gypsy that well. She didn't know what Gypsy was capable when she came and stayed with them. So yeah, I'm sure she did, and that's her baby. That's her golden child, and Rod's. Mia is. But yeah, so...
And once that detail is sitting there, everything else starts looking together. The alleged firing, the job change, the unfriending, the deleted photos, the distance. Suddenly, it starts looking less like scattered gossip and more like one ugly little chain reaction. Because Mia was not moving like someone who was mildly annoyed. She was moving like somebody trying to get her life out of the blaze zone. Then you get to the weekend getaway. Gypsy had her girls trip set up with Christy, Aurora, and Gigi, and Mia was not there. Missing, not in the lineup, not part of the cute little family moment. And no, that is not automatically huge by itself. People miss trips, people have jobs, people have lives, but inside this story, with everything else sitting there, it matters. Because this was being framed as part of the larger reality that Mia and Gypsy were still on the outs, that Mia was still not talking to her, and honestly, why would she go? If your sister is somebody you allegedly had to distance yourself from professionally, somebody who openly admitted she has been jealous of you for years, somebody whose chaos may have already touched your job, why would you go sit around in some scheduled family bonding setup and act like all is well? That does not sound relaxing. That sounds like the beginning of a Deadlight episode with bad lighting. That is why Mia not showing up matters. It was not just a missing detail, it fit the pattern. She was not acting like somebody who needed a breather. She was acting like somebody who had decided distance was necessary and peace was probably not available available in Gypsy's zip cord. That is the part where Gypsy basically grabs a shovel and starts helping bury herself, because one of the strongest receipts in this whole story came straight from her. Not from gossip, not from a stranger, not from somebody reaching so hard they needed a back brace. From Gypsy herself. She admitted since Mia was born till even when I was in prison, probably even right before I got out, I was jealous of my sister. That is huge, because now nobody has to invent the jealousy angle. Nobody had to force it. Nobody had to stare at the ceiling and make up symbolism like this is English class. She said it. She admitted that jealousy toward Mia had been there for years. Then she made it even uglier by saying Mia is one of her triggers. Her sister, one of her triggers. That changes the whole feel of this story, because once that is on the table, the idea that Gypsy's presence could create instability around Mia stops sounding like dramatic internet reaching and starts sounding extremely believable. You do not get to admit long-term jealousy toward your sister, call her a trigger, then act shocked when people connect dots. So now every other detail gets darker. The allegation that Mia got fired, the job change, the deleted photos, the unfriending, the distance, the skipped trip, all of it now sitting under Gypsy's own confession that she has had long-standing jealousy toward Mia and openly sees her as a trigger. That is such a rotten thing to confirm publicly, because it positions the whole room. Even somebody trying really hard to not be. He is here because he helps show that Mia's situation does not feel isolated. Once more than one person around the same woman ends up with job fallout after her public mess explodes, people are going to notice, and they should, because at that point, Gypsy stops looking like somebody who just has bad luck. She starts looking like one of those people whose chaos jumps hosts. Her drama does not stay put. It travels, it latches, it takes other people's peace and sets it on fire for warmth. That is why Ryan matters here. Not to hijack the script, just to sit there like one more ugly little reminder that being in Gypsy's orbit does not seem to come cheap. That detail about somebody allegedly asking Mia about the firing in her life and then getting blocked may look small next to the bigger receipts, but it matters because it adds to the atmosphere around this whole story. Stories like this are not always built out of one perfect smoking gun sitting under a spotlight with dramatic music. Sometimes it's the behavior around the topic that makes something feel real. If the question came up and it got shut down, that does not automatically prove the whole allegation fine, but it does tell you the subject was sensitive. It was not something that could just be laughed off and flicked away like lint. Then you put the next to the alleged firing, the LinkedIn change, the deleted pictures, the unattending, the professional distancing, the missed trip, and Gypsy's own jealousy confession, and the image that keeps forming is ugly as hell. Mia does not come off like somebody happily living her life while random people invent nonsense around her for fun. She comes off like somebody trying to separate from a situation that had become corrosive. Professionally corrosive, personally corrosive, just pure acid on contact. This is the part that makes the whole thing especially pathetic for Gypsy, because if the allegation is true, or even if Gypsy's chaos simply helped create the conditions that damaged Mia's career, the outcome did not make Gypsy look powerful. It made her look like the kind of person people need protection from. That is the backfire. Mia appears to have created distance. Mia appears to have protected her professional life. Mia appears to have removed the public tie. Mia was not there for the family trip. Mia allegedly was not still playing happy sisters with Gypsy. So if Gypsy's jealousy, instability, or public mess helped push that situation where it went, what exactly did she win? Nothing. She just made the worst narrative around herself look even stronger, that people close to her end up paying, that being attached to her can become a liability, that her relationships are not just emotionally messy but actively damaging. And that is way worse than some dumb online feud. A feud is embarrassing. A liability follows you to work. A feud makes you look petty. A liability makes some people start rearranging their lives so your chaos does not stain it. That is why this story hits, not because it is loud, but because it feels believable in the ugliest way possible. Your own sister allegedly has created professional distance from you. Your own words confirm the jealousy. Your public chaos already seems to have touched other people's jobs too. At some point, the bad luck excuse starts looking like a clearance bin lie. The simplest reading is note that every single detail has been neatly stamped, laminated, and filed away for public viewing. The simplest reading is that too many details line up in one direction to pretend this is nothing. A nurse co-worker allegedly makes the claim. Mia's LinkedIn shifts from labor and delivery to dermatology. Somebody allegedly gets blocked for asking about it. Mia unfriends Gypsy. Mia removes the photos. It is said she did that to create distance for her professional life. Mia is not at the trip. Gypsy admits she has been jealous of Mia for years and calls her one of her triggers. That is not some innocent little cluster of details. That is a nasty trail. And that is why the story works best when it stays straight. No overcooking it, no padding, no wandering off into 15 other Gypsy side quests like we are on a chaotic little field trip through her nonsense. The ugliness is around there. You just have to lay it out. Once you do, the picture forms itself. Mia looks like somebody trying to step away from a source of disruption. Gypsy looks like the disruption. That really is the whole thing. If Gypsy Rose really did have a hand in Mia's losing her job, then what she created was not some big win over the sister she clearly has issues with. She created one more reason for people to look at her like she is the problem in every room she enters. And even if somebody wants to cling to the idea that the firing itself was never fully nailed down beyond allegation, everything around it still looks terrible. Mia's professional path allegedly changed right after the claim. She cut the public tie. She created distance for professional reasons. She stayed away. Gypsy handed over the jealousy confession herself. So no, this does not make Mia look bad. It makes Gypsy look like the kind of person whose chaos is so constant, so invasive, and so embarrassingly personal that even her own sister allegedly had to stop protecting her life from it. That is not misunderstanding. That is not bad timing. That is the kind of toxic that makes people start quietly backing toward the exit while smiling through gritted teeth.